Welcome back, everybody. IAmAMusicNerd here, and we're going to talk about the Smiths, one of the most popular, influential 80s rock bands of all. Welcome back, everybody. IAmAMusicNerd here, and you know what this video is about. We're going to be talking about the Smiths, one of my favorite bands, one of the most influential bands to come out of the 80s, and what can be said about the Smiths that hasn't already been said. Here to talk about their very short discography. Remember, they're only around for maybe, 5 or 6 years, but they have had such a massive influence in the history of rock and roll like very few bands have. So I'll be ranking them in a tier list from best to worst, looking at all their albums and projects. Before I get into this content, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button, please hit the like button, show your support. If you're a return subscriber, hit the notification bell to be alerted for new content. Alright, so let's get into it. We're going to be talking about their first album, The Smiths, self-titled The Smiths. And this came around a time when I think REM had just come out, and jangle pop was really being brought back into the mainstream. You know, bands such as The Byrds and Crosby, Stills, and Nash kind of had that sound in the 60s, and the Smiths we're kind of bringing it back, but with a more postmodernist touch. And a lot what is on this album would be template for what the Smiths would do for the rest of their career. You know, Johnny Mayer's like jangle pop kind of guitar, Morrissey's crooning, and lyrics about death and depression, and just feeling like shit in this world. And it's no wonder how the Smiths had amassed such a great cult audience this quickly. There was nothing that sounded like this in British music at the time. And looking back at this now, so many great hits: Hand in Glove, Still Ill, This Charming Man, songs that will be played in future Smiths concerts and would be just overplayed in rock radio for years to come. And to me, I think what makes this album special is the closer and the ending track. So it starts with Rear Around the Fountain, and it closes with Suffer Little Children. Now, both of these songs, they sound, pretty happy for the most part, but what the content about this is not as, it's very dark. The Suffer Little Children is talking about the Moors murders that happened in the mid-60s, this serial killer couple. And then Rear Around the Fountain is basically about pedophile. So it sounds pleasant, but when you really take a look at these lyrics, I think that's the genius of Morrissey and Johnny Mayer, is that they made pleasant music about such horrifying topics that need to be talked about. So while I don't put this as my favorite Smiths album, I have to say that this is a pretty enjoyable listen. I'm going to put this in the B tier. A very, very solid debut that would spawn tons of little garage bands in the UK and the US. Alright, the next project is Hatful of Hollow, and this is more of a contemplation album with a couple of newer tracks. Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now, one of my favorite Smiths tunes. Like I said, a song that sounds so pleasant, but basically Morrissey just crooning about how he's just, depressed and he just hates life. And then, of course, the most famous new song to come out of this album is William, It Was Really Nothing, which is about, Morrissey giving advice to a guy who is being married to a fat girl and how he's sad about it. This would not fly in 2021, but Morrissey has a slight sense of humor about it. But for the most part, these are tracks that were on the Smiths album, and with a couple of like new overdubs. It's fine. I go back to it, pretty often, but I can't rate this high amongst Smith's projects since it's just basically a contemplation album. So I'm going to put in the C tier. The next project, Meat is Murder, which came out a year later. And, the most famous song that comes from this album is How Soon Is Now. It's a 6-minute long track, and it kind of showed the Smiths delving into dance pop, and you kind of hear that New Order, Depeche Mode influence on this track, and the Smiths in general on this album diversifying themselves. It wasn't just jangle pop. They were kind of leaning into post punk, dance pop. Like I said earlier, even shoegaze. Very early shoegaze. You can hear influences on later shoegaze bands such as My Bloody Valentine, even the Cocktail Twins. But for me as a whole, it doesn't really grab my attention. There are a couple of duds on this album. I think the Smiths were trying to figure out their sound here, trying to throw shit on the wall and see what sticks. How Soon Is Now is a classic song, of course. But I think there are experiments on this album that don't really work. So do I go back to this album often? Not really, only for a couple of tracks. I know people that really love this album, and for me, it just doesn't really hit as hard as their earlier project, the Smiths, and later projects. So if I had to say my least favorite album, it would probably be Meat Is Murder, and I'm going to put in the C tier. Alright, the next album, The Queen Is Dead, which came out in 1986, and this is my favorite Smiths album. I felt like they were combining the best of the first album, self-titled, and Meat Is Murder, and it blended perfectly here. There's a Light That Never Goes Out, Big Mouth Strikes Again, even delving into country music with Vigor and a Tutu, Cemetery Gates. There's so many great songs here. And I think with this kicking off with the title track, The Queen Is Dead, the drums in here are amazing, really get you pumped up. It's almost like it's a Smith song that you can mosh to, which is weird. Even delving into like goth rock on this album. There's such a great blend of genres on this album that really make it sound pleasing. Even though, like I said, the Smiths talk about very depressing things. Every song here kind of has its own flavor, and it shows the Smiths increasing, their production budget. There's really nice production flourishes here. Morrissey playing with the sound of his voice, especially with Big Mouth Strikes Again. It's almost like he's pitch shifting a little bit. This is a fantastic album. What can I say? If you have not heard this album, what are you doing? It's an absolute post-punk classic that will have huge influence for years to come. So I gotta put this in the S tier. I really can't find a song that I can skip. It's a perfect album in my opinion. Alright, the next album is Louder Than Bombs, and like Hatful of Hollows, kind of like a little bit of unreleased tracks, except I think this had a lot more unreleased tracks. It's kind of like a double album, but not of a cohesive project to say. And there are some great cuts here, even showing the Smiths diversifying their sound even more, delving into reggae a little bit. Songs like Panic, are classics in the Smiths oeuvre. But really, like I said, I can't really rate this too high or too low because, like I said, it's not like an album. It's kind of like a I don't want to say playlist, but like it's a bunch of it's not a cohesive statement as Queen Is Dead or the Smiths or Meat Is Murder. It's just a bunch of solid Smiths tracks to listen to, and I think Louder Than Bombs. Obviously, if you guys don't know, Public Enemy released the song Louder Than a Bomb, which was based on the title of this album, Louder Than Bombs, which I think has an allusion to World War II or something like that, where there were bombs over London. I'm not too sure about that, but Morrissey did have a penchant for delving into British history. If you look at his cover art, you look at the lyrics, he did have a kind of wistful remnants of, British, post-war Britain to say. But yeah, this is, I think it's a fine project. There's some, like I said, great cuts to come back here. Not everything on this project works, but like I said, I can't judge it too harshly because it's not really an album. So I'm gonna put it. I think it's better than Half Full Hollow. I do enjoy some of these cuts. Like I said, I'm gonna put it in the B tier. Last but not least, their final project before breaking up, Strange Ways, Here We Come. And while I don't enjoy it as much as The Queen is Dead, I do think that this is a great fitting end to a solid discography. Like I said, songs like Death of a Disco Dancer, Girlfriend in a Coma, these are, like I said, classic Smith songs. And while it doesn't have the urgency of the Smiths or the diversity of Queen is Dead, I think Strange Ways, Here We Come is an enjoyable Smiths album. I think it is, like I said, a fitting coda. Do I enjoy it as much as Queen is Dead or the Smiths? Probably not, but I think there's some of the parts here are better than the whole. But yeah, otherwise, it's a pretty good album. I'm going to put it in the B tier. Maybe B minus, towards that. My third favorite Smiths album. So yeah, that is my tier list. Tell me what you think in the comments section. What are your favorite and least favorite Smiths albums? What are some of your favorite Smiths songs? I'm curious to know what you think. YouTube recommends these videos to check out after this one. More content is coming away. Until then, love you guys.